Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports podcast presented by Underdog. Today we're making campus visits with our college beat writers, Gary Bedore, Kellis, Robinett, and Shreyas, Laddha. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. Okay, I said we were presented by Underdog, but there were no underdogs at this year's Final Four, only top seeds. Florida emerged as the champion last night by beating Houston, and you know what that means? The Gators and the Cougars are the last to the transfer portal. Well, hey, we'll get into the portal in a big way here in a moment, but let's go back to the title game. Kellis, what in the world happened to the Cougars? 12-point lead in the second half.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Kelvin Sampson made a joke about Sasquatch State early in the game, and then Houston turned into Sasquatch State in the last 3 minutes. Just very, very difficult to watch. I assumed when Houston pulled ahead by 12 points in the second half with that defense, the game was more or less over. I mean, even scoring 12 points against Houston can be hard enough at times to outscore them by 12 the rest of the game in that setting. I didn't think Florida was going to do it, but the one thing they've shown all tournament is just when you think Florida is down and out, they find some way to crawl back in. It's unfortunate for Houston. I feel bad for their fans. I feel bad for the Big 12. That's twice now in the last couple of years with them and Texas Tech getting all the way to the very end and losing on a heartbreaker. It was a rough one. It was a rock fight of a championship game. At least it was close, but you would have liked to at least see Houston get up some shots the last couple of minutes to end the game, going turnover with the national championship on the line. That's got to make their fans sick.
Yeah, Shrey, that's my lasting impression was not even getting a shot off in the final three possessions, and that was look. Houston had played great. The win over Duke is they'll have that forever, and that was amazing. In fact, they beat Duke the way they lost last night, didn't they? They just had the lead in the second half and gave it away.
Yeah, I mean, UF was kind of the comeback kids all tournament. They came back again in the final. I didn't know if they could do it. I had them winning my bracket. Selfishly, I was hoping they win, even though I'm a Georgia fan. Don't want to say that out loud, but it was the best bracket of my life.
Yeah, we'll edit that out that you're a Georgia guy. Yeah, we'll make sure that.
But yeah, it was a crazy game. I think everyone complained about the one seeds being represented in the Final Four, but I think this was the highest level of basketball I've seen in the Final Four in quite some time. Competitive games throughout, close games up to the final seconds, crazy comebacks. I think it was a nice finish. Obviously, you want the shot to get off. I was a little surprised he didn't do something. Even if inadvertently, it's better to just get a shot off than be in that position where he has to drop the ball and hope somebody else gets it. But Great finish for both sides. And obviously, I know Houston fans are probably distraught about how everything ended, but, I think it was a very good year for them, and they exercised a lot of demons.
Look, it was a fantastic season for the Cougars and for Kelvin Sampson. Gary, you and I go back with Kelvin, don't we? I don't know about you, but I was really pulling for him just because we've known him for so long.
Yeah, so as I Golden has many, many years to win a title. Kelvin probably not as many. Shows you again how hard it is to win the NCAA tournament. I mean, I don't know how UConn won 2 in a row and Florida won 2 in a row years ago because it's so hard. Houston has dominated the Big 12 the last 2 years. 1 loss this year. And yet they don't get the ultimate prize. So I just think for Kelvin, they were due to not finish one out. I mean, how many times this year have they either clobbered somebody or they've been able to finish it out or pull off the comeback, and they finally got, it finally happened to them where they couldn't finish. So Kelvin, I really have always liked the guy dating back. He was accessible when he was at OU. You could call him and not have any red tape. Kelvin would get on the phone and give you comments about the KU game coming up. But you could tell on his face and during his interviews how disappointed the guy was. Because as a coach, you don't want your crucial plays to not even be executed. And to not get the shot off and have the ball just lay there, that's a coach's nightmare. But like everybody said here, what a season. I don't know if they're going to keep dominating the Big 12, but they certainly have the formula the last 2 years. They've clobbered everybody.
They have. They have. I go back. I can't remember if the game was at Kemper or at Allen Fieldhouse when he congratulated Paul Pierce during the game. Remember that? Pierce was
Yeah.
lighting him up, and maybe you remember the specific game, but I just remember Pierce going by the OU bench on the way to the KU bench, and Kelvin congratulated him on having such a great game.
Yeah, I think it was senior night, but he was a
Yeah.
junior, and he walked down and congratulated. Until recently at Houston, he's had some long nights at Allen Fieldhouse, and
Yeah.
this year, the disaster for KU, but Houston laid out the blueprint for miracle comebacks in Allen Fieldhouse.
For sure. Okay. Well, like I said, the Houston and Florida, because they played the last game of the season or the last one into the transfer portal, but the teams that we cover have been swimming in the deep ends for quite a while, especially the Jayhawks. What a roller coaster it's been for them to lose almost the entire roster, and now they're filling it back up. And we're gonna have to talk about each of these guys, but let's just go with the mass exodus of players. Shreyas, why did this happen? What led to the departure of everybody? Right, Rylan Griffin, AJ Storr, David Coit, Marquise Passmore, and Flory Badunga for a little while, but now he's back. What led to the mass exodus?
I mean, Kansas comes off probably the most disappointing season in the Bill Self era. I mean, preseason ranked #1, you lose first round. You were never really in contention for Big 12 title. You're out of the AP poll for a couple weeks there. Worst ever seed in the Bill Self era. It was just a lot of combination of things, and it felt like everyone was waiting for the end of the season. The trio of Hunter Dickinson, KJ Adams, and DeJuan Harris just didn't really seem to work, nor did the guys they brought in to surround them with. There was no consistency. And it was an interesting year, I think, for Kansas, because I never really felt like outside of conference play that I was confident in this team to win 2 straight games. There was a streak where they were playing basically 500 ball for almost a month and a half there after in January. So I think it makes sense. A lot of guys are looking for better opportunities. Now the roster is being oriented around Darren Peterson, incoming 5-star freshman, probably top 3, top 2, top 1, maybe. NBA draft pick in the 2026 draft. And, all the recruits and transfers I talk to, everyone's talking the same thing. They're talking about how they can play alongside Peterson and how Self is saying how they could fit. So, I get why a lot of these guys who might have not necessarily seemed like guys who would leave, like Diggy, Coit, or Flory, or whatever, had considered or are considering the transfer portal.
Gary, do you think while it was happening, while it seems like every day there was a new story about a KU player leaving, but do you think this was kind of part of a grand plan to entirely reshape the roster, almost entirely reshape the roster?
Yep, definitely. It's a two-way street, and somebody that's impeccable told me that of all the guys that left, only Badunga was encouraged to stay. They don't force you out as such, but the plan, no one will ever say it if it's true or not, but the plan was to, it's a two-way street, and they have meetings about the future of these players, and the only one that was really encouraged to stay, I think, was Badunga. And that one shook him up a little bit when he left, but he's back. So those other guys, they weren't effective. And if they really wanted to stay, I assume the coach would let them. But I think it's exactly as your question suggested. I think it was a planned thing. And
so while Kansas fans may have been a little panicky about, oh my God, are we even going to have a roster next year? All of a sudden, names are appearing on the Kansas roster. Let's talk about a couple of them. Let's start with Flory. It's funny how when you look at like on threes or 24/7's list of transfer portals, they have they have the former team and then the arrow and then the new team, transferred from to. But with Flory, it's just a Jayhawk logo right in the middle of it. You're not gonna, because technically he didn't go anywhere, but he was in the ether for for a week or so. Shrey, what happened with Flory, and why is this just a money play for him?
I think a lot of people think it is. I think it's not just a money play. I've been in touch with his camp throughout the process since the beginning of where, he entered the portal, and his guardian was kind of adamant that, hey, we want to go to a place where they can develop him and have the right roster around him. I know his camp was a little afraid with a lot of the spots that opened up for Kansas. They weren't sure who was coming back, who wasn't. On top of that, I think they know what the NIL game is, right? They know that entering the portal puts pressure on Kansas to raise X amount of money to get to him. I'd heard if they told me multiple times that if this was a money play, Flory would have never come to Kansas in the first place. And I thought it was really interesting because they told me they got offers for 3.5 million from schools that were not even in a finalist for Flory in this transfer portal thing. I think it came down to Kansas and Auburn. I know a lot of people reported Indiana, but from what I heard, his camp was not interested. I think there's some bad blood there dating back to previous administration. But I think the biggest thing is they just wanted to know that Flory, A, is going to have the minutes and the right roster fit around him, and B, obviously, NIL did play a factor like it does with all these guys. But C, I think they felt a lot more reassured with some of the guys coming in. I know Darren got on the phone and talked to Flory. Darren's been busy this offseason talking to a lot of guys Kansas is interested in, just kind of talking to them about convincing them to come to KU. So I think in a lot of ways, it was a decision that was smart, but it's not going to win them any favor from KU fans because people want loyalty. But in this day and age, and I said this on Twitter, until we get to a point where college basketball has contracts, it just seems like there's going to be a lot of guys entering the portal where they test it and they basically test their current team or original team on how much they're willing to raise the stakes on how much they got paid.
Shoot, I think they should. Shouldn't they, Kellis? I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you test the market for your value and see what you're worth? I mean, players or prospects are doing that when they decide to leave a mid-major to a major. Why not, if you're already at a major, see how much you're worth and see what others are willing to pay you? And I don't know. In the world that we're in now, it's just a smart business move.
Yeah, it's a good question. It would be kind of like in the NFL if every single player was on a one-year contract, and you had the option to test the free agency market at the end of every offseason. Most people would probably do it, especially if you're an elite player, because the only real fear is that you're going to annoy your current coaching staff and lose a spot on your team. But if you're like Flory Badunga or a guy who's going to be very much sought after in the transfer portal, I suppose there's not a whole lot of downside other than just panicking your fan base. Like in this case, if you do come back to Kansas, you got people riled up for really no good reason. But yeah, I guess I would just say that that stuff's going on behind the scenes, whether you enter the transfer portal or not. It's kind of funny. I hear coaches complain all the time. Oh, there's tampering going on. People are talking to our players. We got to stop it. There's really no such thing as tampering in college basketball and college sports in general anymore. There's no rules. If you want to get somebody off a different team, there's no stopping you from trying. So that's one thing, one tiring thing about this current age of college basketball is all the complaining about this stuff. There's no rules. I have found it interesting. Even my own kids who are just now starting to really pay attention to this stuff, they got super interested in filling out brackets this year. Even they were saying that they wish there were more players who at least stay 2 years at schools, and they wish there was some way they could make that happen. I was like, well, I think we're all trying to make it happen, but it's not the current environment.
Well, you better treat them well, or they may look to transfer to another family and maybe get a better deal somewhere.
If they can get the money, then I support it.
They're encouraged, right? All
Somebody,
right,
if somebody offers them $3.5 million, I won't begrudge them changing their last name.
Hey, before leaving KU, let's just take a look at some of the players and maybe project a starting lineup for next year. Let's start with Trey White. Gary, you wrote about him. What are the Jayhawks getting with a guy who I believe committed to Kansas out of high school?
Yeah, he started at Illinois, 10.5 points a game, 32.9% from three. Not great, but not many guys are over 40 these days or at 40. They get a possible starter. You know, they still have work to do in the portal. They can add some more guys, but you know, he started at USC. He went to Louisville, went to Illinois. But if you need him to, he can start. You know, if you watch his highlights, athletic and all that, good player. And if you look at guys they lost and guys they've added, you know, that's a trade. You trade Trey White for a Zach Clemens or a Rylan Griffin or whoever. So I think he's a good player, was able to start at a Big Ten school.
Yeah, seemed to have some kind of either friendship or relationship with Jalen Wilson, or knows Jalen, or so. Yeah, I saw somewhere that he might be projected as a starter. How about Jaden Dawson, Shrey? What do we know about him?
Yeah, I mean he's kind of the epitome of a two-way stud. I know Kansas wants guys who can play both ways. He plays defense the Bill Self way. You know, he dropped 35 career high against San Francisco in the NIT second round. You know, which is stepping up for big games. That's a positive sign. You want to see that if you're a Kansas fan. He's a decent three-point shooter. You know, not incredible, but he's shooting I think 36%. And I think he could be a guy that could challenge Marco Jackson or Jamar McDowell for that starting guard spot alongside Darren Peterson. I think ideally, if you're Kansas, you hope he's like a better version of David Coit, plays like a super 6-man minutes or something like that, because I think you were hoping Marco or Jamari take the third year leap that a lot of guys have in the Bill Self system. But I was impressed by his ad, and I think he's a guy that is a good character guy, good cultural fit for Kansas. But also, a lot of friends I had text me who were at Loyola, Chicago fans, are watching him play. They were like, "You guys got a stud," and I know they were disappointed, but they're excited to see him play in the Big 12.
Is he a point?
Yeah, like he's kind of a combo guard is probably what I'd say.
Okay, 6'4", 13.9 points, and like you said, 36.3 on threes. So can you imagine a starting lineup of Peterson, Elmarco Jackson, Dawson, White, and Flory? Does that make sense? Or is there fourth or fifth starters out there in the transfer portal somewhere?
I think there's a wing they need to bring in. I think there's a wing that can maybe give him a little scoring punch alongside Darren Peterson and Flory that could be out there. I was a little surprised. I'd reached out to Diabate from Alabama and his agency and stuff like that, and they said Kansas didn't reach out to them at all, and I think he would have been a good fit alongside them. He's a nice wing, former top 50 prospect as well. I think he would have been interesting to add. But I think ideally, if you're Kansas, you want a wing that can score a little more, and then you can figure out the guard situation. I mean, like right now, if you're looking at the wish list, it's a wing that can start for them ideally, a backup center, and then maybe another guard or so.
How about the Big East Player of the Year, RJ Louis? Is that how he pronounced it? Is he still out there?
He is. He is. I think it's interesting. I know there was some rumors he might be testing the NBA waters. It's interesting because that entire recruitment has been very quiet. I haven't seen a ton on him of who he's interested in or what schools and this thing. But I presume it's like one of those kids like Flory where when you enter, everyone reaches out to you. But the reality of the situation is how many schools are he really interested in and how many is he actually interested in them. So he'd be a big pickup for Kansas if they could get it.
Well,
he did a long interview with Stephen A. Smith or somebody yesterday, and he's all in for the NBA draft. But as you know, that falls apart a lot of times. So he was just talking to NBA draft with I don't know why I think it was Stephen A. Smith. Somebody interviewed him. Yeah, it was because of the New York connection. And he asked him why he left St. John's, and he just kept talking about the NBA and how he hopes to be ready and all that. But he'd be obviously a guy KU would want badly if that doesn't work out.
Take a swing at picking sports this baseball season with Underdog. Playing on their app is as easy as choosing higher or lower on players' stats. Get them right, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. Sign up today using promo code KCSTAR to get a gimme pick as a part of your first cash entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus credits when you deposit. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
So what's the population of the portal? What's the population of the portal right now?
Thousands.
That's right. Bigger than most Kansas and Missouri burbs. I mean, I thought KU had a chance at the Central Florida score, the Big 12 Hall, the Big 12.
Hall, yeah.
Yeah, where did he end up?
Auburn.
Yeah, Auburn. Yeah, that might have been a good get for KU, but that's like shopping in a catalog, isn't it? You just you look at the list and that'd be a good fit. That'd be a good fit. So, and speaking of shopping, Kellis, Wildcats, they have a long list of needs, don't they?
They do. They've got maybe not quite as many open spots as Kansas did at one point, but after the last couple of years when they were in that boat, they'll probably take, looking to rebuild most of the team instead of all the team. But they have landed at least one incoming transfer so far. Abdi Bashir, who had heard from Kansas and a bunch of other teams at points in his recruitment. A very intriguing player. If you watch his offensive tape, he looks amazing. Averaged almost 21 points a game at Monmouth last year. Made 127 three-pointers for him. Put that in perspective, Kansas State's best three-point shooter last year, Brennan Howson, who actually just announced he's going to transfer, only made 90. So this guy can really shoot, and you could call him a walking bucket, but at the same time, his defensive metrics are about as bad as I've ever seen on anyone. If you look at Bart Torvik, he has a 3.5 per minute rating, or a box score rating on offense, then a negative 4.7 on defense. So that means at Monmouth, he wasn't even, at the end of the day, despite scoring all those points, wasn't really helping them win games. So I guess the hope is you come in, teach him to be a little bit better basketball player, take better shots, play some defense. If all those things, line up, then bam, you got a really good steal here. If not, then you're hoping that maybe he can at least come in and make some threes. But you know what? For the first edition out of the portal, I think he's worth a flyer. The disappointing thing for them, though, is they've been in the running for some other guys. Nigel Pack, who we all know, announced that he was considering Kansas State. If he would have come back and gotten a waiver to play another year, he would have been a heck of an ad for them. But he's off to Oklahoma instead. They were looking at Markel Sutton from Omaha, the Summit League Player of the Year. If he would have come here, I think he would have been a great addition to the front court. He picked somewhere else. They were in the hunt for Robert Morris's top transfer big, who you saw what he did against Alabama in the NCAA tournament last year. He picked somewhere else. So if they would have connected on all those guys, then wow, you'd have been looking at a pretty stout starting lineup next year. As of now, the only guy for sure coming back is Doug McDaniel from the starting five. So got to build around him a little bit. And, I don't really know what to say is next up, but they've got a lot of lines out in the water. And over time, we'll see where it goes.
Is there any evidence? I know we're only a few years into this way of doing business in college basketball, but is there any evidence that the later it takes for you to build a roster, the more disadvantageous your position is? People, how fans are. They get panicky about, how come we're not getting, look at that school getting guys and we're not getting guys? I mean, is it, do you think, do coaches approach it differently? Or can some be more selective? I don't know. I'm just curious about the timing of the transfer portal, which ends, by the way. It has an end date. I think April 22nd? It
I believe so.
closes.
Yeah, it should be coming up here fairly soon.
Yeah. So there are going to be a lot of late ads, aren't there?
Yeah, and there's really no, strict science to this stuff. In Jerome Tang's first year, he got off to a very slow start in the transfer portal, but then he adds Keontae Johnson late in the process, and all of a sudden they're a very good team. So it just kind of comes and goes. I think the best way to do it is you have to at least build a foundation early, especially if you've got quite a few holes to fill. You can't be waiting until the last minute to add 4 guys. But if you can leave 1 or 2 spots open and get off to a decent start, and then fill with guys who maybe test the NBA draft waters and decide to come back to school, that's where Kansas State has had some success in the past with guys like Keontae Johnson, Coleman Hawkins. They've been able to get some guys that way. I think if you can just leave some spots open late, and if you still have NIL money to throw at these guys, then you're at a position of strength. But you've got to at least have a foundation going early on.
Okay, hey, just a quick word on Missouri. They've got 2 in, Sebastian Mack from guard from UCLA, and Javon Porter. People who know the Porter name at Missouri, he's the youngest of the Porters. Transferred in from Pepperdine. They did lose a local product, Aiden Shaw, Blue Valley High, big man, transferred to Boston College. Sorry to see him leave the area, but good luck to Aiden Shaw in his new destination. So, all right. Transfer portal madness still upon us for at least another couple of weeks. But let's switch gears. Let's talk a little bit. Spring football is also upon us. And one thing that's true about Kansas State and Kansas is they are returning 2 of the best quarterbacks in the country, and there'll be a lot of eyes on both. I don't know if it's going to. I think K-State will be in the preseason top 25. I'm not sure about KU, but Kellis, bring us up to date on Avery Johnson and spring football in Manhattan.
Yeah, I actually got to see my first spring football practice this morning. So that was exciting to be out at the football complex and see everybody running around again. Specifically on Avery, I'll say I've just been continue to be impressed with what he's done to his body. When he came to Kansas State 2 years ago, he was very if you would describe him in one word, it would be skinny, if not skinny, long-haired guy. Now you can definitely tell he's beefed up quite a bit. Just the upper body muscles he's put on are very noticeable right now, and he's still running fast, if not faster than he was when he came in. So I think that's exciting to think about heading into next season. That not only is he gaining experience, but he's gaining muscle and improving his body along the way. But football is not just one position. They've got a lot of other spots out there, and Kansas State right now, I think the most exciting thing about it is that you got Avery Johnson back, you've got Dylan Edwards back, you've got Jace Brown back. To have your 3 most exciting players back at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, that's a pretty good place to start from.
Yeah, it is. They might end up being preseason top choice again in the Big 12. We'll have to see. So, and Jalen Daniels is back. Is he 100%? What's his status, Shrey?
Yeah, he's been limited throughout practice with he had a minor knee procedure is what Kansas called it. I believe it was a knee surgery. But I saw him, he came back last week for the first time in a minute. He's practicing. I don't know if he's fully back to practice, but this was the first time I've seen him all spring out there practicing, which is a good sign. And I think Kansas needs it. I mean, they have a lot of new faces on both sides of the field for them. Especially all of their wide receivers are brand new. I've been hearing really good things about Emmanuel Henderson from Alabama. A lot of excitement there from Kansas because they think he could be a real wide receiver 1 for them, which I think they haven't really had in Jalen Daniels' tenure. And on the defensive end, they have a lot of really new guys to fill in, guys who are going to have big shoes to fill in, like Kobe Bryant and Mel Dotson gone. Now they have to bring in a brand new secondary. So a lot of excitement, I think, for this Kansas football team, but also a lot of new faces around it. And it'll be interesting to see how the lack thereof continuity will affect this team after having a tough season last year.
NFL draft is coming up. Who's going to be KU's first player drafted?
That's a good question. If I was gonna guess, I'd say either Devin Neal or Mel or Kobe. I don't really have a strong preference. I know Devin has been going up draft boards a little bit.
Mhm.
I'm guessing he's a third, fourth, fifth round guy. Um, Melo, I think, could be a little earlier, and Kobe, I know, has been getting some recognition. So I'm really curious. I think I think personally, from what I've heard from some NFL, draft guys, there's more uh, belief that Melo can translate to the NFL better than Kobe. Even Kobe had a little better number wise the last couple of years. So I think it'd be interesting to kind of see which one goes first, but. I think Devin has done a good job outside of his 40 time to kind of put him in a good contention for a spot to be maybe potentially round a day two guy if things go well.
How about from K-State?
Jacob Parrish should go first. He's been their best cornerback for the past couple seasons. And when he entered the draft a year early, people thought he'd be a late round guy. Then he went to the NFL draft scouting combine and ran a 4.43, 4.4, just put up a great time, impressed everybody with his numbers. So I think he's going to be a day two guy, maybe a third round pick. He should go first. But the guy I'm really intrigued to see where he lands is DJ Giddens. I think he's a very underrated running back, and he's the type of guy that you can plug into an NFL backfield, and maybe he won't be starting, but he's a guy who's going to contribute, and I think he could be a big difference maker in year one at the NFL level.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see between him and Neal who goes first, because they're both definitely getting drafted. It's a deep draft for running backs, by the way, and Missouri's going to have maybe a top 10 player in Armand Membu. So moms and dads out there, if you want your sons to grow up to be NFL players, grow them to be about 6'5" and 330 pounds, and let them play offensive tackle, because that's there's your ticket to the NFL. So, all right, great conversation as always with Gary Bedore, Kellis, Robinett, and Shreyas Laddha. Big thanks to Randy Mason and Monty Davis for producing SportsBeat KC, presented by Underdog, and we will do it again soon. Thank you very much.